and welcome to Abstract Essay, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He's the co-founder and head of a behavioral research and master trainer at Life Skill College or Skills College, none other than Mr. Blair Dunkley.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
Welcome. Yes, welcome, Mr. Blair on Abstract Essay. Can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Well, I did 17 and a half years of research in the area of behavioral studies at Life Skills College. And what I wound up recognizing and figuring out was a thing called question concepts. And question concepts is basically every utterance out of your mouth is filtered through one of six question concepts. Just simply put, it's a who, what, when, where, why, and how. But it's
Hmm.
the structure, it's the concept behind those words that actually is the fascinating part.
Fascinating indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Blair. Thank you. And today let's talk about psychological profilers. So tell us, let's start with the Hollywood image. How accurate is the portrayal of a profiler, such a brilliant, intuitive who can walk into a crime scene and instantly know the killer's life story? What are the biggest misconceptions?
Well, for me, I'm not that kind of behavioral profiler. But what I do is I walk into somebody's office and talk to them for a few minutes, and then I can start listening to gaps in how they think and how they behave, and start helping them leverage themselves into um, depends if they have relationship issues, if they have financial issues, what are those issues, and how might they be able to shift from where they were to where they are. And if do you want to get better, do you want to be more effective, then that's what I do. I help them leverage them to transform their life condition.
Transform. Well, like that. Mr. Blair, the term profiler is often used, but what is the more accurate clinical term for what you do? What does the process actually entail step by step?
Well, as I shared with you earlier, the area of question concepts was made up 6.5 years of the 17 years of research that I did, listening to how people think and how people talk. How people talk literally is how people think. It's not a guess, it's not whatever, it's literally how the brain is working in the real time. So when you actually get in there and start engaging with people, you're hearing the brain operate in a way that is referred to generally as R type behaviors. R type behaviors mean that it's a response behavior. In short, habit patterns, without going into too much detail on that. How you normally respond is you have a pattern of communication that you filter information through, and that becomes your default mechanism. But that drives so many behaviors. So if you're somebody who's stuck at a certain financial level, um, that actually holds you in that spot, and you wind up repeating the same patterns over and over again until you identify what you're doing. So if you are self-sabotaging, you'll repeat that, you'll get to a certain level, then you won't know how to break through because that's the pattern that you're comfortable with repeating. So you change your language pattern, And all of a sudden you start breaking through to different ways of thinking. And that's what I focus on, is leveraging people in very specific ways.
In every specific ways. And Mr. Blair, how much of profiling about understanding a crime scene itself, rather
Actually,
than yes, go ahead.
I don't do criminal profiling. So
Hmm.
I do corporate profiling. That's my area of expertise.
So can you tell us, walk us through about this kind of profiling?
Um, exactly. So the corporate profiling is listening to individuals where they go into a model, a pattern, and let's say that somebody is um, stuck at a certain way of managing people, and that management model is done because the individual keeps telling the person the same thing over and over again. And the manager goes, well, that person doesn't get it. I'm going to fire them and hire another. Well, he tells the other person the same thing without asking the questions to find out, what does the person that he's trying to employ understand? How does he move forward? Um, that individual winds up getting stuck and winds up getting fired over and over again. how does that how can that be changed? Well, the manager, the owner of the business, whoever is there, is the person that needs to adjust how they're doing it and start applying some basic mind models, like asking questions. In those mind models, we have a thing called the 3 E's, and they're not asking themselves, is what I'm doing effective or ineffective? They just expect everybody else around them to be effective. And they don't have to adapt, everybody has to adapt to them. So, literally, what occurs is that person gets capped out on their level of curiosity, their level of creativity, their level of being able to problem solve and keep things, moving forward. It's not terrible, but it's not effective for growth. But if you start changing how somebody is thinking, how somebody is actually problem solving, then you change the opportunity. So if you start evaluating versus judging the situation, the judgment shifts to evaluation. You start asking what questions rather than why based questions. All of a sudden, you start finding out facts. And with those facts, you can start taking a look at them and see what's working, what's not working, and then evaluate what's one thing I can change right now. And when you do that, you've actually started yourself on the path of being able to make incremental improvements.
On the process and methodology, Mr. Blair, profiling is often about predicting the past to find a perpetuator in the present. How do you use the evidence of your profiling to infer an offender's past behaviors or background or potential trauma?
Well, one of the things here is that if people have trauma, um, one of the issues is that we're generally caught in a thing that I refer to as a why loop. And they go, why did that person do it to me? Why don't they do something else? Or why did this have to happen to me? And it's always why based, or very many of the questions are asked are just fundamentally why. And that creates a stuck state, because whys always pull past information. So if they're always using the past information and they're not looking to find new information, they stay stuck in their past. And it's basically a process of reliving their past mistakes and doing it over and over again. However, if you start understanding that you're moving from reliving into shifting that past, from reliving it, feeling the feelings, and going through the same emotional intensity as you did before, and you shift that into remembering. All of a sudden, that transition into remembering gives you distance on the emotional impact and gives you access to being able to find alternatives and start applying both acceptance of what happened and curiosity to find out what you might do differently. But if you're not curious, if you just have an expectation that things should be the way that you think they are, then you're in a stuck state. And that stuck state doesn't change.
So, how do you navigate the balance between using statistical data from past crimes and treating each new case as a unique individual puzzle?
Well, um, first of all, I'll reiterate I don't do criminal profiling.
Hmm.
I have gone to police services, yeah, well, one here in Canada and the RCMP, and shared that information. I just about got the contract to be able to do that, but they had a huge budget cut at the time. So that did not happen. But basically, it's by listening to people deeply at that moment and by paying attention to exactly what they are saying. And when you pay attention to what they are saying, you start listening and saying, oh, this person, well, in my case, with you and I, he doesn't work with criminals. I have, but I don't do criminal profiling per se. What I
Hmm.
do is I look at stuck states and individuals and how I can help them get more responsive to unlock their brain so that they stop self sabotaging and repeating the same thing over and over again and go, oh, so what might I do differently? So, Daniel, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead.
So, what might you do differently in drawing out and figuring out how I actually work? Could you do that for me?
Yes,
Ask a different
definitely.
question.
Yes. Ask different question and different techniques, probably. Or another signature that make the conversation give the highlights of I want to know.
So, what is the highlight that you want to know?
Like how will you deal with people with, let's say, profiling in criminal background because you are not doing that. How
No.
would how would you integrate criminal things into your daily profiling itself?
Well, first things first, I wouldn't because that requires a specific skill set that I don't claim to have. So, what I do have is I am a profiler where I listen to language patterns and I'm a language based profiler. Um, and in understanding how people are stuck or frustrated or overwhelmed or what drove a specific set of behaviors, which is similar but different to criminal profiling. You would take
Mhm.
a look at what is that language pattern, then you can deduce back what kind of background that individual has in business, not in life necessarily, but in business. And a lot of people behave similarly at certain levels of income. Like when your business is between zero and 500,000, people behave one way. When they get from 500 to their first million, they start shifting. But most people can make that jump from 500 to a million. But when you're going from 1 million to 5 million, that next set of jump is rather significant. And that's where a lot of people get stuck because they're looking at what to do, not how to think. And so they don't evaluate themselves, and they run up against this ceiling that they think they've got to make things more complex, but it's actually a ceiling that they have to simplify and take a look at their own business models, and that makes a difference at that moment.
Interesting, Mr. Blair. And as a co-founder and a behavioral researcher, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Well, what I'm doing is I'm actually, my short-term goal is to start collecting clients again that are in the 500,000 and want to get to a $20 million um, breakthrough or barrier. That level of 20 million, a lot of people don't break through that and go beyond. And I've helped my clients go from basically startup. Right now, one of my clients is doing over $100 million in business. And so what I'm doing is I'm leveraging people and finding those people who are stuck where they are and showing them, okay, this is how you're thinking right now. And are you asking the questions of yourself in an effective way to actually leverage the information that you're getting? Can you transition yourself out of and beyond how you're thinking? Yes or no? And when I do
Yes.
that, they
Mhm.
break it down and they start going, oh, maybe I'm not being as curious. Maybe I'm not being as open. Maybe I'm stuck in doing the same thing and trying to do the same thing in a slightly different way than figuring out how to actually leverage and build on what they did rather than tweaking what they did.
Well, good luck to your goals, Mr. Blair, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
Well, they can definitely start looking for, like, asking themselves, is what I'm doing effective or ineffective? And stop judging themselves. Stop going, that was right, that's wrong, this is good, this is bad. Just break it down into, is this effective or ineffective? And then from the effective or ineffective, is that information externally verifiable or just my opinion? If it's just your opinion, it's not going to be very reliable. But if it is externally verifiable, you can get feedback from others on that and you can move forward. Now, you can also see if you videotape what you're doing and seeing, is this working for you or not? And
Mm,
evaluate that. And the last one is evaluation versus judgment, because judgment is just about getting an opinion, an internal judgment of a situation, as opposed to an externally verifiable evaluation. When you evaluate, you can transform. When you judge, you're probably going to stay stuck.
yes, and thank you for that advice, Mr. Blair. And to wrap up our discussion for today, finally, after you have seen what is this work taught you about the nature of good and evil, what is a resilience of the human spirit?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit. What did you ask? Sorry, I couldn't make it out.
Yes, finally, after have you seen what was your thought about resilience of the human spirit as you profiling them?
Well, when I've worked with a lot of people with trauma and depression and stuck states, I've also worked with a lot of people who are frustrated and overwhelmed. They're very smart individuals, but they're frustrated and overwhelmed with not being able to get beyond where they are. And so resilience comes in with curiosity and figuring out, literally naming and labeling what works for them and being able to then tweak it and see what else they might do differently. Knowing what you've done is important, but figuring out where to go, what's next, what is that next thing that I can see, that I can test. And resilience for me is always about testing possibilities.
About testing possibilities indeed. And Mr. Blair Dunkley, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Well, I really want to support you, Daniel, with everything that you're doing and helping put people out there on the map. It's
Mm-hmm.
super important. So I want to thank you so much with that. But if people want to get a hold of me, they can go to blairdunkley.com, and at blairdunkley.com, they can find a link to put in and book a free call with me to either get profiled or figure out what we might do together next.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Blair Dunkley because if you support him, pursue more and more empowering advocacy will rise. So, Mr. Blair, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.